club today, we have none other than the one and only Mr. Cole Thompson of both the Texans Wire and SEC Unfiltered. Going to break down the Jaguars' Week 3 matchup with those Houston Texans, especially coming off of Monday night's loss for the Texans at the hands of the team formerly coached on the offensive side of the ball by Liam Cohen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll also dive further into the numbers and the film with regards to Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence's connection. Can it be fixed? Can it be salvaged? And of course, live Q&A at the end of the show. Let's have a Thursday, folks. Let's party. Welcome into a Thursday edition of Club 904. I am your host, Mia O'Brien. Yes, I am back in the illustrious UNF leadership office for today's episode. That is because I actually taped ahead of time with today's guest, Cole Thompson, who is on the board for the Houston Astros Thursday matinee for the radio station he works for out in H-Town. And so appreciate Cole's time. For those of you who are familiar with Cole's work, it is probably no surprise to you at all that this interview was 30 plus minutes. Shout out to Cole for taking the time yesterday. And so we had a lot of fun. You guys are going to hear that here in just a little bit. So because of a 30-minute interview with Cole, want to hit a couple things right off the top. We'll get to Q&A at the end, maximizing our time here on Club 904, syndicated on the Action Sports Jax Network. Housekeeping off the top, of course, as always, comment, leave a question, your thoughts on the Jaguars, how they currently stand, the matchup, this show, me, whatever you've got to comment on. Leave it in the comments, whether you're streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or maybe you're on X. And then if you comment on X, then I believe I'm able to actually highlight that question. And so if you want to be highlighted on the show, make sure you tweet at me, you tweet at Action Sports Jax. And of course, you can also catch us on the .2 channel for Action News Jax, as well as actionnewsjax.com. Wanted to take some time today off of my conversation on Tuesday with Dan Griffiths of Action Sports Jax to dive even further into the numbers with regards to Brian Thomas Jr., his regression, can we call it that? Small sample size, 2 games time in 2025, but also this idea of throughout training camp, there were questions of, is he just not a practice player? Does he truly step up when the lights come on? Liam Cohen said in the stadium practice and against the Miami Dolphins in joint practice, arguably his 2 best practices of 2025 training camp. And yet throughout the rest of that 6-week period, there were questions. I know many will go back to, and Austin Lane certainly did on Jaguars Happy Hour. We'll have Austin back either next Tuesday or the following Tuesday, by the way, to do a little 1-2-step film breakdown. Austin brought up the Pittsburgh Steelers preseason game and the shot that Brian Thomas Jr. took on a crossing route over the middle. And does he perhaps feel a little gun shy, a little concerned about contact? And Austin gave the great analogy of, for him as a professional MMA fighter, that there was a time where he took a right hook to the face. And so he was constantly afraid of that right hook shot. And they really had to rebuild his fundamentals as a fighter from the ground up. Is that what you do with Brian Thomas Jr.? After he got off with the air with us on Tuesday, Dan Griffiths continued a great job. You follow him on Action News Jax at Dan D. Griffiths. In case you missed Tuesday's episode, it is available on demand. Does a great job of diving into the numbers. What is most surprising to me here, for those of you listening on audio and not watching live on any of our video streaming services, and so you can't see these percentages with regards to routes and win percentage in both 2024 and 2025 for Brian Thomas Jr. The one that sticks out for me is the one all the way at the bottom. Look at the number of crossing routes that Brian Thomas Jr. through 2 games time has run comparatively to the Press Taylor, Doug Peterson offense during his rookie season. Goes from 9.7% of his total routes run to 20.9% in 2025. You can make the argument that maybe this weekend you see Liam Cohen say, you know what, we're going to really just keep you out on the perimeter. We're going to focus on the go ball, which, by the way, 0% win percentage through 11.9% of his routes in 2025. We're going to get you where you're comfortable winning one-on-one. Maybe that's the call. But here's the concern. When you look at Jamar Chase, when you look at Justin Jefferson, some of the best wide receivers in the game today, what do you see? They run a lot of crossing routes. Well, yes, the highlight reel touchdown grabs often come one-on-one with the DB running down the field. So much of their success is in the middle of the field. And what area of the field did Trevor Lawrence in the 2024 offense, and 2023 for that matter, completely neglect? The middle of the field. This offense is structured, and I got this feedback from some players in the locker room yesterday as well. This offense is structured to where the wide receivers are asked to do a little bit of everything, and they do need to make a living through contact in the middle of the field, especially on those intermediate routes. I enjoyed that Austin noted as well on Happy Hour that he feels Brian Thomas Jr. not a liability in blocking, a willing blocker. BTJ told us from the moment he arrived here in Jacksonville, fresh out of the Cortez Hankins School of Wide Receiver Craft at LSU, that if you didn't block, Cortez, the former Jaguar, was not going to let you onto the field. And you saw it his rookie year. He really did place an emphasis and took pride in his blocking. We know the Sean McVay tree places an emphasis in wide receivers who can block as well. And I think you've still seen that. So that's where I don't think it's a matter of he's not physical enough, because you're seeing him be physical. The question is, what happens once he has defenders bearing down on him? Now, the flip side of that, does Trevor Lawrence play a role in this potential regression or mental block that Brian Thomas Jr. is currently going through? I want you guys to take a listen, if you haven't already, to Dan Orlovsky on yesterday's NFL Live. He broke down some of the tape against the Cincinnati Bengals that I think you're going to want to listen to. Stay right there.
You see on the field between Trevor and Brian?
I would tell you, I think a lot of the offense has done some nice things, but it's Trevor and Brian Thomas Jr. I think it's angles and expectation with their pass game between those two that through 2 weeks is just off. You have a go route up top. Okay, with quarterback, I'm just trying to see where you are in relation to the corner. If you're behind them, I'm back shouldering. Even or above, this ball is going to be thrown with air, fading you to the sideline. Yeah. Brian Thomas Jr. is expecting, I'm going down the field in the green arrow. This is a touchdown. Wow. Trevor throws the right arrow, back shoulder. Yeah. There's a disconnect there. Yeah. This is the one down in the red zone where everyone's like he's scared to get hit. So he's going to cross the middle of the field. I think Trevor's expecting, because down in the red zone, dude, right when you clear, ball's out now, okay? Yep. And I'm cutting it loose, and it's going to be face mask or higher, and it's just where I got to go throw it. And you'll see a little bit of Brian Thomas Jr. Looks like he's like reacting there, and everyone's like, he's scared to get hit. And I sit here and I go, there's 4 bodies around him, so I kind of get it. But from the quarterback going, I'm putting that ball up high for you. And I just think that the receiver and quarterback are expecting angles. There's a corner route where he flattens it instead of takes it high, and there's another incomplete. I think the quarterback and receiver are expecting different things at different times.
Orlovsky goes on to note that part of why you saw Liam Cohen banging on his chest is to put it on the eye and the actual placement of the football to the wide receiver. And this idea, and I really enjoyed the NFL Live crew breaking this play down as well. We just don't have time for it. When you see Travis Hunter going into a route, you see him out of the corner of his eye looking for the defender. And you can make the argument, well, he obviously has to look at who's around him on the field so he can adjust his body accordingly. I totally get that. But the idea of, is he paying attention to the defender because he's more concerned about who could be bearing down on him? And maybe he is worried about where Trevor Lawrence is placing the ball and if it is putting him in harm's way. And Dan notes that Tom Brady back in the day really took pride in not putting his wide receivers in uncomfortable situations. And so for the Trevor is the problem crowd, there you go. There's some fuel to the fire. And Trevor is culpable, as the NFL Live crew discussed on Wednesday. But that first play, the one that was a choice route for BTJ of either a go ball or then if it's a back shoulder, depending on where he is in line with the DB. Little nuances like that are something I'm going to be really paying attention to, not just this weekend against the Texans, but moving forward for the Jaguars. I've said from the beginning that I thought, and I keep giving him his flowers, Derek Klassen of the Athletic Football Show hit the nail on the head. This year, year one of Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence is year one of Matt Ryan and Kyle Shanahan. For the first time in his life, Trevor Lawrence is being coached to do little things that, in the words of Liam, when he went out to coach with Sean McVay circa 2018, are more PhD and master's level than it is your basic, hey, throw the ball to the wide receiver and away you go. I think you're seeing an offense that requires that high IQ that I believe Trevor Lawrence has. It just may take a couple of weeks to develop. And Liam Cohen stressed that on Monday in the availability on Zoom, that, yes, Trevor is about where, if not ahead of where he expected him to be, which is not a finished product at this point of their first season working together. Let's take our first break. When we come back, Cole Thompson going to join us for a wide-ranging conversation. You know there will be some SC Unfiltered talk. There'll be some college football jabs. Gators fans, I don't think you're safe, but that's okay because you are safe when you're in Club 904. Leave a comment, leave a question. We'll hit those at the end. First things first, though, let's take our first break, and then you'll hear from Cole Thompson.
Spot on.
To get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness, and most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC. We are professional grade.
Putting your needs first. It's the backbone of how First Florida Credit Union does business. In all honesty, you might as well be speaking another language when it comes to finances. Sure, I'm good with my money, but what am I missing in the fine print? That's what led me to First Florida Credit Union. They're the perfect choice for anyone starting their financial journey because they keep finances easy. Plus, they offer financial education and resources I can trust. So I'm always growing more confident. And as a young adult, I am constantly adding more responsibilities to my plate. From a car payment to a mortgage, it all adds up. Luckily, First Florida Credit Union makes sure it adds up in all the right places and not the wrong ones by offering better rates and lower fees than traditional banks, even if you're still trying to grow your credit. Because as a member-owned institution, First Florida genuinely puts people's needs first rather than focusing on profit. So I know as my needs change, they'll be right there to help me reach my goals. Check out firstflorida.org to learn how you can benefit too.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants. We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Right now, you can get a free Connecticut reverse osmosis system with a purchase of a Connecticut Premier softener. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
Hi, I'm Greg Mackey from Cycles of Jacksonville. Whether you're looking for a side-by-side, ATV, motorcycle, or scooter, Honda has what you need.
The Honda Talon. Ultimate performance meets family-friendly fun. Prices starting at $363 a month. Or the sporty Honda CBR 650 starting at an affordable $204 a month.
Stop by and choose your adventure from a full line of Honda products. Only at Cycles of Jacksonville on Atlantic Boulevard. Family owned and operated since 1983.
Hello, I'm Kenny Lay of Kenny Lay & Associates. Since 2003, our firm has fought exclusively for the rights of men in family law. Divorce, modification of child support, alimony, custody, and more, all for men. A father is vitally important to a child's life, and being a man is not a reason to pay more in child support or alimony. I'm a single father. I get it. If you have a divorce or other family law issue, contact Kenny Lay & Associates at divorcemenonly.com.
High school football is right around the corner, and here at Action Sports Jacks 24/7, we're bringing in a new wave of high school football coverage, introducing the Blitz Breakdown and the Friday night game of the week. Start your week off right with the Blitz Breakdown on Monday nights, giving you live analysis, interviews, picks, rankings, and more, making it a one-stop shop for high school football in the 904. And don't think we're stopping there, because on Friday nights when the lights get bright, Action Sports Jacks 24/7 will be there with a live game of the week, bringing you some of the best in-county rivalries in the area.
Play as hard as you can play, do your job, and stay together. Okay, the rest will take care of itself.
Action Sports Jacks 24/7, your home for high school football.
Welcome back into a Thursday edition of Club 904. Mia O'Brien, excited to be joined momentarily by Cole Thompson. In case you're just joining us, we did record this interview yesterday. Cole is on the board right now for the Houston Astros matinee, but we appreciate him taking a lot of time. You guys are really going to enjoy this interview. But first, let me hit you guys on the YouTube chat because I want to make sure that you know we're there. Thank you, Dan. Happy football hump day. Couldn't agree more, the insurance Dan. Duval Elite Gaming asks, when did we release Darnell Savage? That came on Tuesday, and we will get to that during Q&A because some thoughts on that. Good afternoon to you too, Duval T87. And Brian says, good afternoon, Mia. They should still run Brian Thomas Jr. out as a coverage draw this week, but focus mainly on midfield with Washington, Brown, and Patrick. They're going to need to keep Strange up on the line to reinforce. Interesting thoughts there, Brian. We'll hit that as well coming up in last call. But first, excited to welcome for his maiden voyage here on Club 904, the Texans Wire editor, SEC Unfiltered Zone, the one, the only, Cole Thompson. You guys know it's Jags Texans week. There was only one man who I could call upon. With all due respect to my other friends in the Houston media contingent, Cole Thompson has the floor. Cole Thompson, welcome into the club. Your debut here in Club 904. You could catch him at the Texans Wire as well as SEC Unfiltered. Hello, friend. How are you?
Who would have thought that an 0-2 team would be coming into this matchup and it would be the back-to-back AFC South champions with a new offensive coordinator, with a bunch of upgrades on the offensive side, supposed to be a top 10 defense, which surprisingly still is a top 10 defense, despite the way that you haven't looked that way. Mia O'Brien, let's go ahead and talk about the rivalry that is Duval versus Houston, Texas football.
I love that you are texting me during this game at NRG Stadium, where you, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in the press box.
Yes.
And you're texting me worried about, hey, so we got to do a spot, like, can you record it? But also, can you come on my show? I'm like, dude, aren't you watching a game right now? But hey, you can multitask. And that's part of why we're taping this a little bit ahead of time, because you've got so many cool jobs going on. And one of them is covering the Houston Texans, who may not be so cool these days. But that's okay, because to your point, it's 0-2. And I keep being told this is a desperate team. Describe the vibe in that locker room after that game on Monday night.
Solemn. Very, very solemn. More so because there was an intuition that they felt like that they deserved to win the football game. The way the offense was able to find its way back, the big punt return by Jalen Knoll to be able to set up the big 19-yard run by Nick Chubb, the block punt that allowed them to get exceptional field position to set up a Kaimi Fairbairn field goal, the missed field goal attempt by Chase McLaughlin. There were just so many things that were starting to bode in favor of Houston after those first two drives with Baker Mayfield when they jumped out to a 14-10 lead, that ultimately, when you find a way to come up short, it just felt like something is off. They don't know if it's the offensive personnel. They don't know if it's the offensive line, if it's the play calling of Nick Caley, if it's anything that's going on right now with the overall expectations for the roster. CJ Stroud taking a step back, the inability to run the football efficiently. But still, Houston was able to jump out to that lead, and then the defense couldn't get that final stop. Fourth down, you don't send an all-out blitz, but you kind of spread some things out. Baker Mayfield nearly gets brought down by Henry To'oTo'o in the backfield. He misses the tackle. Mayfield runs for 15 yards, bumps into his buddy C.J. Gardner-Johnson, or he had to call him Chauncey. And ultimately, at that moment, it felt like momentum had swung in favor of Tampa Bay. And you saw that a little bit. Bucky Irving got a few more runs. You saw a couple passes from Mayfield, and ultimately, Rashad White with 6 seconds left, which, Mia, surprisingly enough, when the Texans last played against Tampa Bay, they won with 6 seconds left. So it was almost a repeat of what happened where CJ Stroud had the ball last and he gets the touchdown. Baker Mayfield and Tampa gets the ball last. They improved it 2-0. The big question mark is, what more can this offense do? What more do we need to see from this offensive personnel to make it feel like that there is a balanced approach? because so many people want to blame the defense for the penalties, and well, they were deserved. You had the face mask by Christian Harris. You had a couple of hands to the face by the defensive line that gave second chances to Tampa Bay's offensive personnel. But you also got to remember, the defense was out there for 80 plays. I mean, it was a night and day. But Houston ran 47 plays versus 80 for Tampa. So they were gassed by the time that you got to that final drive. So what is it about this offense that's not clicking right now? They don't have a quality second weapon outside of Nico Collins. They're making sure that they blanket Nico Collins to take him away from the passing attack. Stroud is not having enough time to get his feet set behind the line of scrimmage to deliver shots down the field. You also have to understand that, like, right now, he feels uncomfortable, I think, with the offensive personnel because of nobody is able to get open, and they don't have that secondary punch of being able to trust the football on the ground. Like, yeah, credit where credit's due. Nick Chubb found his way into the end zone, but outside of that one run, which, again, you and I think both have the same thought process here. Maybe something was going behind the scenes of making sure that he scored the touchdown with that 2-minute warning. We're not going to go into the mind of Todd Bowles right now, but still, you got to wonder, what is it about this team that's missing to take that next jump forward? It's a very winnable division. Tampa right now, Jacksonville right now, they found a way to come up short against Cincinnati with Jake Browning on the field. You took all the way for a penalty against Denver for a team in Indianapolis that improved to 2-0. And Tennessee is Tennessee. I mean, they have their own faults to where you kind of know that maybe Cam Ward is actually a good option at quarterback, but the rest of the roster is an unknown. So the panic mode is simply just, what else is necessary to get Houston back to its winning ways? Good news, Christian Kirk is expected to play him, so it's now at least a weapon back in that's going to take some pressure off of Nico Collins. But also, is it really going to matter? Is he going to be such an X factor, or is he going to be obsolete like we've seen Xavier Hutchinson, Jaden Higgins, and the rest of the receiving core?
A lot to dive into.
Yes.
I want to start with Nick Chubb, the run game. I was hosting on ESPN Radio on game night, Monday Night Football coverage with Emmett Golden during this game. And I said to Emmett, and maybe it's because I've spent too much time around the Jaguars facility and this talk of being the more physical outfit. And when you hear those words, you think, okay, hard-nosed, flying to the ball defense. That's what physical is. Well, physical is also moving another man against his will in the run game, both defensively and offensively.
Sure.
And in my opinion, that is the area, the two areas, both in rushing offense and rushing defense, that the Texans struggled the most, which is where this physical identity maybe comes into question, and maybe it's a little bit of an identity crisis for that locker room. What say you?
Think about this for a second. You get rid of Chris Strausser as your offensive line coach. You bring in Nick Caley. You have an opportunity to completely rid yourself of last season's offensive line that was not only the most expensive in the NFL based off of annual salary, but also the second worst when it came to pass protection. And your move is to internally promote the assistant offensive line coach. Now, again, Cole Popovich, people I spoke to, they said that there was a lot of good ideas that he had. Some of the positives that came last year from this offensive line, they were supported because of what Popovich was able to do. And that relationship with Nick Caley from their time in New England together, working underneath Dante Scarnecchia, certainly played a factor to where you could have a bit of trust. But still, you're watching as you don't go and really address the offensive line in free agency or the NFL draft. They went out and they brought in guys who were basically on waivers or were let go for a reason. Laken Tomlinson was not somebody that many people were enticed by. You look at Ed Ingram, he was benched middle of last season and then traded for a 7th round pick. You go out and you land a Cam Robinson because nobody wants to spend that type of money on him. And now he's your swing tackle because if you know that Ariante Ursery, the 2nd round pick, has been so much more polished in pass protection. And surprisingly, he actually graded out with a pretty decent overall metric when it came to Pro Football Focus. He get like a 69.8 pass blocking grade for a rookie in his first start at left tackle. Not the
good
worst
news,
thing.
Cole. The good news, though, was that D'Amico Ryans drew that line in the sand. And I applaud him for this. And he said, Laramie Tunsil, you and your penalties, I'm over it. You're gone. I appreciated that from D'Amico. I appreciated him taking ownership and saying, we will not stand for someone who doesn't want to get with the program, even if it means now we have even more of a deficiency in the talent department.
And that's, I think, like the main area is that you don't have that X factor. Like Titus Howard may be your most consistent offensive lineman, and he is a average to maybe slightly below average offensive tackle. On good days, he's maybe a slightly above average tackle. But I mean, like, that's your best offensive lineman. And also, he just had to spend half of camp working at right guard to now moving back to right tackle to then week 1 playing back at right guard to now moving back to right tackle. So there's no continuity on the offensive line. That's been an issue. They've been getting blown back on the line of scrimmage. You lose Jake Andrews. You now bring in Jared Patterson. That still is an issue at times on the interior of the blocking. You can't be able to run the football through either side of the A-gap. But you brought up the defense, and that honestly was where I was more surprised in this matchup. You know, D'Amico mentioned that tackling was going to be such a major element to this game against Tampa because of who Bucky Irving is, because of his ability to create second chance opportunities and keep his feet moving to where you're not just going to be able to bring him down with a hard tackle or a shoulder shrug. And the same thing goes for Baker Mayfield, the elusiveness of his feet, his ability to create opportunities in the open field. You have to wrap up tackle. Mia, they had 21 missed tackles. And on top of that, they had multiple plays by Foley Podakowski, great run defender. You bring up Mario Edwards Jr., a very solid interior pass rusher. You could throw in Tim Settle. You could throw in Sheldon Rankins, who had a big sack. Yeah. Where they were winning off the line of scrimmage by initial contact, and then backups for Tampa were winning by creating that opportunity to push forward and put them on their keister to where you had to get Azeez Al-Shaair in the line of defense. You had to get Christian Harris in the line of defense. Henry To'oTo'o had to be in the line of defense. They were getting positive contact despite winning that one-on-one battle off the initial block. That's where you have the issue right now. The physicality just doesn't feel there on either side of the trenches. And bottom line, and you and I have talked about this many a time off air, I am an old school soul when it comes to how you win football games. The teams with the best interior and interior offensive and defensive lines are the ones that are going to go that far. The reason Philadelphia won the Super Bowl last year had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts and nothing to do with Saquon Barkley. It had to do with the fact that they had the best offensive line in the league far and away. And if you don't have that protection, it doesn't really matter what you have in your backfield. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Saquon Barkley. You're not moving the football efficiently to where you can make those opportunities for yourself.
Let's talk about Nick Chubb because I'm co-hosting with Emmett. We love Emmett here, Club 904. Shout out to ESPN Cleveland Zone. Emmett and the folks in Cleveland are, I think, just happy to see Nick Chubb back on a football field. My bar to clear for him, too, was, well, he's running. Yeah. That's impressive considering what he has been through physically. But ultimately, is that enough for this Texans rushing offense to actually start moving the ball effectively for the first time with C.J. Stroud under center?
No, because the problem is you need a secondary runner, and I don't know who that is. Think about this, Mia. You went out and you could have traded away Dameon Pierce last offseason. You decided to hold out hoping that he was going to be your RB2. You could have traded him away this offseason. You held out hope that he could be your RB3. You held out hope that Joe Mixon was going to get fully healthy and you were only going to have to utilize Nick Chubb and say 10 to 12 times a game, which is a positive. It's a very good positive. But you don't have Mixon. And Dameon Pierce was healthy and active on Monday Night Football. So he did nothing to show you in the last 7 months while dealing with injury that he could be a balanced number 2 runner. Dare Ogunbowale, for as good as a locker room culture he is, and he is a breath of fresh air and people love him and he's a named captain, he's been dreadful to begin the year. It's not just the fumble. You got to remember pass protection is part of your job when you play running back and you're not going out to run routes. He was bullied. He gave up 2 of those sacks against C.J. Stroud. So you don't have that ability to trust him as a runner. You don't have that ability to trust him as a pass catcher. You don't have that ability to trust him as a playmaker out of the backfield as a pass protector. And Woody Marks, the 4th-round pick out of USC, you hope he's going to be able to add some value to your team. You hope that he's going to be able to show you why he was worth trading up a 3rd-round pick in 2026 for. But so far, he has seen most of his success on one giant catch for a 28-yard gain that eventually set up the touchdown to Nico Collins. I mean, that's really been it. So Nick Chubb
real quick on Marks, before we go back to Chubb, what is his game? Because I have always felt like his game, he's I don't want to say a 3rd down back because that's mean, but he's not an in between the tackles guy.
No,
right?
He's not.
Right.
Okay. The thing that I remember, and I asked Nick Caley this throughout the offseason, was what was something that you really liked about Woody Marks? And he said it's the fact that he's played in so many different dynamic offenses that allow him to be a multi-purpose back. He's
so
great.
he can be effective in the receiving game. It's a for that.
The dude has over 210 receptions throughout his time at Mississippi State and USC. Like, he was a receiving back for Mike Leach, one of the greatest coaches who we miss dearly in the college game.
We love you, Mike. We miss you, Mike.
But by the way, did you see that what yesterday was?
No, was it Pirate Day?
Yesterday was the anniversary of deciding on who was going to be the Pac-12 champion of mascots. Exactly. Like now I make this. Now I make the show.
You knew there'd be a college football reference in this.
Of course there would. It's Cole Thompson and Leo Brown.
Yeah, exactly. And Club 904. Woody Marks, receiving back. Nick Chubb, we're just happy he can run. Is that the bar? Like, that's literally the bar.
Is somebody else going to step on up in the next 2 weeks? Like, that's like these next.
You don't have anyone else if you're.
That's the problem. Is like, do you feel? Well, that's the other thing, is that you have to look at it from the perspective of, does maybe Jacksonville give you a couple of advantages to where you get to see Dameon Pierce show off that physicality? Maybe when you face off against Tennessee at home on next Sunday, the inability of having a solid interior defensive line outside of T'Vondre Sweat gives you that chance to see more of that physical presence from British Brooks, who made the roster because of his special team impact. And the thing with him is that you can't not have him on the field and have him as a healthy and active, because he adds too much value as a special teams player. And that's where he makes his bread and butter. So do you have that other running back? Do you go out and look for another option on the free agent market? And also, when do we get more news and an update on the status of Joe Mixon? You know, he's on the NFI list right now. He wasn't expected to start the season. He's going to miss the first 4 games. That's already a done deal. The question is, after this next game against Tennessee, he's eligible to come off of the IR. He's eligible to return to the field. And you don't even have to make an injury designated assignment, because of he's currently on the NFI list, not the injured reserve list. But he's not available until the Baltimore game. After the Baltimore game is a bye. Do you wait until after that bye to give him time to get more acclimated and more adjusted to the speed? Or is he done for another week afterwards when you go face off against Seattle? And if he's done, do you go out in free agency or out in the trade market and give up another late round pick to bring in somebody that can compete alongside with Nick Chubb? Because Chubb right now, I think, is a very serviceable option in the worst case of the best case in a worse valuable scenario. That's what you have. And it's a good thing to have him, but you don't want him running more than 15 to 16 times a game. And right now, even if you could run the football more than 15 to 16 times a game, he's probably the only back that would give you that ability to trust that you could run the football 18, 19 times. And then probably knowing where his body is and what the recovery process is, the next week he probably would be limited to 12 carries. And in the next week's game, can you trust a Dare Gumbawale and a Dameon Pierce and a Woody Marks to be able to get the job done? And I don't think so. So the offense right now is one-dimensional. And the worst part is about the offense being one-dimensional, Mia, is you have one weapon. You have one guy.
Great segue. I hate that this is about to become all about the offense, but ultimately that's where most of the woes are. I've heard from enough people around the league that they feel like, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel haven't looked awful through the first 2 weeks of the season. And I've just been like, but have they? I know, obviously, to your point, Christian Kirk will return this upcoming Sunday against the Jaguars, and that gives another wide receiver with pelts on the wall into the rotation. But ultimately, to your point off the top, like Nico Collins is faced with cloud coverage. Teams are bracketing him because they'd rather take their chances with those 2 young guys, and I guess now Christian Kirk.
So I will push back a little bit when it comes to Jalen Noel. And the reason why is because he's played, I think, 14 snaps in 2 games.
Okay, so there's not enough sample size.
So the Texans have turned to Justin Watson more than they've turned to Jalen Noel. And I get the Trent Green, could not stop but help and bring up how he was such an impact for Patrick Mahomes and how big of a role he had for this offense person. Okay, Trent, I get it. You played for Kansas City. You love Patrick. I get those things. But at some point, Jalen Noel was brought in because of his speed and because of his ability to turn short to intermediate receptions into massive gains. This is not a player that we're talking about who was just a run-of-the-mill guy in college. I mean, he was a 2-time 900-plus yard, 65 to 80 catch season guy who played for a very pro-style offense underneath Matt Campbell at Iowa State and had over 1,000 receiving yards in his last year while pairing reps alongside Jaden Higgins en route to having one of the best seasons. No, strike that. The best season in Iowa State football history, not just in terms of record, but in terms of offensive consistency. And so this is what you brought him in for. You also brought him in because of his special teams impact. And you got to remember that 54-yard punt return set up the Nick Chubb run. So he's made his mark, but he's made his mark in areas to where you want to see him be more valuable, which is in the passing game, in the reception game, in the return game. And so I don't really have a good gauge on what his entire role is going to be. And now, maybe this is a good thing. You bring back in Christian Kirk. Kirk's a slot receiver. I mean, outside of a few plays where he's going to line up as the Z and then they're going to shift Nico Collins inside, he is a slot receiver, which is going to take more reps away from somebody like a Jalen Knoll. Jaden Higgins, I will agree with you on. The sample size has not been great. I'm not saying that you can always blame the wide receivers. Again, not having a lot of protection, kind of going through a rapid processing part from Stroud's perspective. It's been a negative. But you got to remember that Stroud has an interception on the season. That interception came on a pass to Jaden Higgins. Higgins went up for the ball. Higgins tried to came down with the ball. One of the few things that I had heard that kind of separated him from the other wide receivers that went in the first round was his inability to always win the contested catches. What happened? He's coming down. Kobe Durant grabs it, pulls it down, stays in bounds. It's a turnover. So the sample size that we do have of Jaden Higgins at this point is not very promising because of it's just been 3 receptions. One was an interception that was basically caused, if he just holds on to the football a little bit longer, it's a reception, a 29-yard gain on Monday night, and a 7-yard gain. So yes, it's been underwhelming. I don't think that the people that you're speaking to are wrong because of for what roles they have, it hasn't been that bad. But also for the expectations that we had coming out of camp and the way that they looked, and also the fact that the Texans moved out of 25 to pass on several offensive tackles, to then go to 34, and knowing that you had guys like Luther Burden still on the board, and you still had Ozzie Trapillo still on the board, and you still had multiple running backs that you could have gone after still on the board if you want to pair somebody alongside with Joe Mixon, and you went for the wide receiver that still is not making plays. That's where the underwhelming part comes in. And there isn't that other guy that you compare alongside that says he's so much better than them. Like Xavier Hutchinson proved that he was a good enough player to make the active roster over John Mechie, which is why he was traded to Philadelphia. But that doesn't mean by any whatsoever standpoint he has been an elite world-class pass kicker. I mean, that's really where we are, is that you got a bunch of 3s and 4s having to take over as 2s. Yeah. And that's not a good thing.
No. Let's end with this, the elephant in the room. We've touched upon everything minus tight ends, which I'm not even going to get into Dalton Schultz and that whole pecking order.
Hurt too. So, now we got overturned. You got Luke Lachey and Jakob Johnson having to fill in at this point.
Don't you take the name Luke Lachey in vain. Or
Iowa tight ends. Guess what?
Pride, and Jakob Johnson is the pride of Duval, baby. Reball High School forever. I do want to get to the elephant in the room. CJ Stroud, his performance, chicken or the egg. Is it because of all of the deficiencies around him that we've discussed here today? Or is it because he has taken a step back?
A bit of both. I mean, okay. So let's do this. And this is where Texans fans hate me, and I'm okay with it. And this is where a lot of people in the media sometimes disagree with me, and I'm okay with it. It's year 3. Take some ownership. At some point, you have to know your surroundings. You have to understand that there are things that are not going to be controllable because of the situation that you're put in. You have to be able to respond. You have to be able to repercuss that. You have to be able to mentally pick up the speed and awareness of knowing that you are not going to have a 6 seconds drawback and then wait for a receiver to get on open. You may end up having to tuck and run and pick up yards by yourself. You may end up having to throw on a 6-yard slant pattern rather than get to an 18-yard comeback route. Those are just things that you are going to have to be acclimated to because of this is your surroundings. And by year 3, you should know what you're playing in. Now, again, the situation is not good. So I give you the benefit of the doubt through 2 games that the reason why your passing numbers are down and your deficiencies when it comes to, being able to connect with deep shots and make the explosive plays are certainly being hindered. I mean, Mia, he's being pressured on 41% of dropbacks. I mean, that's almost unheralded at this point
Not
to be
great.
successful. It's
funny.
ridiculous.
Which is funny when you consider that during the broadcast, they showed the pressure percentage and the pass rush win rate on the defensive side of the ball and how it was going to rival that of, I think, like the highest number for the Texans since week 2 of 2024 or late in 2023 when they played like the lowly Jets or something like that.
They played the Bears that weekend. In week
okay,
2.
there you go.
Yeah.
Another lowly team.
Another lowly team. And again, credit where credit's due. Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea are two of the better interior pass rushers, and Kancey got hurt, and now he's probably going to miss the rest of the season. But still, I mean, this is a problem that you have regardless, I think, moving forward because of the interior offensive line has been held together by duct tapes and more so likely practice squad players or guys that you're wanting as depth pieces, not full-time starters. Ariante Ursary, for as good as I think he can end up being, is still in his second game, in his first game at left tackle. Titus Howard is who he is at this point. So the overall situation is not that promising. You don't have a good secondary tight end element. I mean, Harrison Bryant, they activated from the practice squad and they elevated him to the active roster. He tripped over his own foot on what would have been an easy first down play that would have just given you some bit of
liked him coming out of FAU.
Everyone liked him coming out of FAU. He was an
raise my hand,
All-American
that's okay.
John Mackey Award winner. What's not to like about the receiving tight end that dropped one ball throughout his entire college career in Boca Raton? But you don't have that option as that security blanket that you can just dip the ball over to at an efficient rate. And then when you do, like a Dalton Schultz, guess what? Good defensive coordinators find a way to eliminate him. And then they force you to have to make the throw downfield. So the situation is not great right now for the offensive side. But the other thing that we just got to also keep in mind is that Stroud has got to be able to learn from his mistakes. He's got to understand this is the surroundings that I'm dealt with. This is the hand I'm forced to be played with. I've watched other quarterbacks have terrible situations and be able to live up to the billing. I have to start making those type of moves as well. So will I think he stay this way for the rest of the year? No. Has my opinion of him overall changed on who he is as a quarterback? Slightly. I thought that we well jumped the wagon when people said that he was a top 6 quarterback going into 2024. I think he's a top 12 to 13 quarterback right now. I thought he was a 12 to 13 quarterback going into the year. It's just going to take some time. This matchup against Jacksonville and his ability to build that rapport, I think, with Christian Kirk is going to have to be on display if you want to see any bit of progress in the passing game. And I think that the next week against Tennessee, with how well Matthew Stafford was able to connect inside the red zone, that's going to be something that is really beneficial. The thing that's really important, Mia, to know about this Texans team, they are currently the only roster in the NFL that does not have a red zone touchdown. We are 8 quarters in. They do not have a red zone touchdown. They had 4 plays to punch it in for the one, and they couldn't get it in. And whether that was the play calling, whether that was the inability, whether the physicality, whatever it is, I mean, it feels wrong because of you. Life is better when you are talking about a positive team and you're talking about things that you can look at. I said after they were unable to connect with Nico Collins on the 4th down play, if you can't score from the 1-yard line, you don't deserve to win the football game.
Unserious football operation.
It's unserious.
Yep.
And right now, if you get them inside the red zone and you take away the rushing element and you can take out the interior offensive line to where Stroud is going to have to feel flustered to throw the football, 90% of the time, it feels like right now you're walking away with the dub. I mean, that's really what this is. The explosive play to Nico Collins, and if you give space to a running back or a slot receiver, Jaden Higgins for that matter, they'll get their yardage. But outside of that, this offense is very predictable, and it's not a good thing that I don't know how much better it's going to get. I don't entirely blame Nick Caley. I don't entirely blame CJ Stroud. I don't entirely blame Cole Popovich. They all have a say in it. But something has got to change pretty quickly, or else this season is going to go off the rails, and you're going to be looking at an 0-3 Texans team. You talk about a team that at 0-2, a 12% shot of making the playoffs. I think 0-3, it's like 6%. And this is a very winnable division with an improving Jacksonville squad. Indiana Jones, which, by the way, how dare you give that program, that guy, how dare you do that and give us Daniel Jones now he's played Indiana, Harrison Ford, and a Tennessee squad that at least I think is going to have an offense that can make things interesting going into the second half of games.
What's funny is I thought, maybe I'd have multiple guests on today's Club 904. And then I said, you know what? Let's be real. I'm going to go almost 30 minutes with Cole. because we have a lot to talk about, especially coming out of that Monday night game. Jags, Texans on Sunday. I don't think you will be here, which makes me sad. But I know we will be in constant contact both during the game, before, and after. Check him out, Mr. Cole Thompson. Of course, you can also check out his college coverage over at SEC Unfiltered. Give us the rundown. What's the schedule for the weekend for you in terms of on-air stuff on YouTube, radio, and beyond?
Oh, boy. Okay, so Friday night, we have the live stream event where we're going to be doing a happy hour. I'm going to give you my 10 best bets of the week. One of my favorite plays right now, I'll give you it early on. Hammer the -7.5 in favor of Arkansas over Memphis, and take the under between Miami and Florida at 52.5. I understand this offense has been anemic for Gainesville, but their defense is showing up. So make sure you go ahead and check us out on Friday night. On Saturday morning, we got a recap and reaction to Arkansas versus Memphis. In the afternoon, we have a reaction to Auburn versus Oklahoma. At night, we have a reaction to South Carolina versus Mizzou. And then, of course, you can catch out all of our reactions on Sunday whenever the Texans end up inevitably either pulling out an upset, which feels like that's weird to say about them against Jacksonville because they own the series, but it does feel that way right now, or an inevitable loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can check out all the coverage over at TexansWire.com and follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson.
Legend. 7 straight wins for the Texans. Can they make it 8 in Duval County? I believe, at least when the betting market opened, the Jaguars a 1.5-point favorite. We'll be curious to see if that stands throughout the course of the week. You are the best, Cole. Appreciate you, brother man.
Anytime, Mia.
I tried to warn y'all. I see you boys in the comments on YouTube right now saying, man, King of Tally says, boy, Cole is a talker. Sheesh. I tried to warn y'all. Hey, it is about 1:46 Eastern as we are live streaming on all of the channels of the Action Sports Jacks network. Our thanks to Mr. Cole Thompson. Again, you could check him out at a wide variety of locales, most notably, of course, the Texans Wire. That's most relevant for this weekend's Week 3 matchup between your Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. He also is a host on SEC Unfiltered. I don't know if there's better online specific direct to online coverage of the SEC. And I say that with love and respect for, of course, all my colleagues at ESPN, which is on terrestrial radio and television. So that's why it doesn't count. And all my love and respect for my other friends who cover the Southeastern Conference, but they do it unlike anybody else. And so you can check out Cole, like he said there. And then he also is a host and producer at Sports Talk 790, which is why we recorded that interview ahead of time, because he is currently producing the Houston Astros matinee. Since it is now 1:47 Eastern, and we've got about 8 minutes before our friends at Foot and Fleety take over here, or Fleet and Footy. Wow. Good job, Mia. Fleet and Footy. Stuart Weber's going to find me for that one. Take over on the Action Sports Jacks network. Let's start with a couple of questions. Let's hit last call. So hit us with your questions, whether you're watching on YouTube, X, Twitch, wherever you may be. Let's start with Carlton and Hamby's burner, which I texted Jason Hamby to see if it's actually him. He has not responded. So Hamby's burner, maybe you are Jason Hamby after all. Both Carlton and Hamby's burner say Jaden Higgins was balling out against South Dakota and Arkansas State. It's Iowa State. Relax. Yeah. But at the same time, Tinsley, who I know a lot of preseason darlings really enjoyed, the third, fourth wide receiver, depending on who you ask out in Cincinnati, had a touchdown against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a highlight reel touchdown at that this past Sunday. Would not be surprised if, especially given the cloud coverage, bracketing, however Anthony Campanile and company choose to attack Nico Collins, directly opens up opportunities for those two rookies out of Iowa State, especially when you consider the fact that, and this is why I was so excited to really dive into this offensive operation with Cole, the Texans can't run the ball. And Emmett Golden and I talked about it on ESPN radio on Monday night. Like, I get that the Cleveland contingent, like Emmett, which shout out to Emmett, you should listen to him on ESPN Cleveland. They're just happy to see Joe Mixon, or not Joe Mixon. They're happy to see, we don't know where Joe Mixon is right now. That's a story for another time. They're just happy to see Nick Chubb walking again. Like, that is the bar for Nick Chubb. That 25-yard touchdown run was the longest he has had since week 17 of the 2022 season. It's a low bar to clear with our expectations for Nick Chubb. And you couple that with Woody Marks, still a rookie. You heard Cole say he's probably more of a third down back. Dameon Pierce is one of the more fascinating storylines in the AFC South in the National Football League, given what we saw his rookie year, granted under a different head coaching regime, and now where he has been the last few years. They had an opportunity to trade him this offseason. They did not. I'm very fascinated to see, especially knowing how well the Jaguars' run defense has looked at times in the first 2 weeks of the NFL season, how the Texans choose to operate with those running backs. But if your offensive line can't move people, it's really not going to matter. And that is where we currently find the Houston Texans offensive line, which according to the composite rankings between SIS and ESPN, 36, which was about 25th, 26th in offensive line rankings through the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. The Jaguars fourth, by the way. Let's hit some more questions. Our friend Dell, don't they have Daria Gomawale too? That's also a name. Yes, Cole hit that one right after you sent that question in, Dell. If you guys missed it, of course, you can go back and listen to this episode at any time on demand, wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube at Action Sports Jacks. Just go to our playlist or go to the live tab and hover over to today's episode. I thought it was interesting that Cole said Dare's really been a disappointment through the first 2 weeks of the season, because I think ever since he left Jacksonville to go to Houston, he's been a thorn on the Jaguars side over the last few seasons. And he's been, again, a third down option and a core four special teamer, but he has been a productive player for the Texans. And then the fact that they have another running back too, like, I mean, how many running backs can you carry, D'Amico, Nick Caserio? I mean, hey, listen, Liam Cohen said it was going to be hard to keep four on the not only active roster, but on the game day 48-man roster. And Tank Bigsby was shipped out of town. Hit some more questions for you guys. Again, this is last call, so leave your comments, leave your questions. We've got about 5 minutes before Fleet and Footy takes over here on the Action Sports Jacks Network. I know a lot of you had questions and laughed about, and I see Hamby's Burner and Clayton Davis saying, the Texans offense is clearly missing Christian Kirk. Our third best receiver is back. That'll fix everything. But it's true. I mean, when Nico Collins is the only option in your receiving game and you do not have a run game, they are looking forward to Christian Kirk's return, because they just need something for the Houston Texans just need something offensively that isn't Nico Collins. Because while the Jaguars defense is still young and has a first-time play caller in Anthony Campanile, it does not get any easier, folks. The road for the Houston Texans after this game against your Jacksonville Jaguars. Take a listen to the rest of their schedule here these next few weeks. They will host the Tennessee Titans on the 28th. Cool. At the Ravens, a week 6 bye. That's not too easy. I mean, this is a Texans team that's had a week 13 or week 14 bye each of the last 2 years. Then they travel to Seattle. Then they host the Niners, and then they host the Broncos. It's obviously a first place schedule, so this is part of that. But, you know, when you don't have the horses for courses to go up against some of those defenses, I would think Robert Saleh and that new look Niners defense at that point in time, going to be clicking on all cylinders, even if they are one of the younger defensive fronts in the National Football League. And so, yes, I know get your Christian Kirk jokes out now, because I do think that simply having someone else is a benefit. And you saw it with the Cincinnati Bengals game on Sunday, that having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but also having some of those unsung 3-4 wide receivers, in the same vein that so many of you in the YouTube chat right now are clamoring for Parker Washington, the same can be said for what Christian Kirk could bring to this Texans offense. Matt Jones, not that Matt Jones, says Trevor needs a Russell Wilson stat game, and BTJ needs to run Malik Neighbors routes and have his stats of week 2. I'm curious what you mean when you say Malik Neighbors routes. Yes, Russell Wilson put up nearly 500 yards of offense after looking anemic in week 1. Malik Neighbors, and not that Brian Thomas Jr. can't, runs every route in the book. I mean, I guess the fact that he is unafraid of contact in the middle of the field, and that's the big question right now, how BTJ feels about contact in a situation where you could have 3 or 4 defenders bearing down on you, but also, as we let off the show with, is Trevor Lawrence putting his wide receiver in a position to succeed? Because ultimately, yes, you're going to have to make tight window catches and tight window throws, but as Dan Orlovsky outlined, and if you didn't catch that part of the show, go back and listen to it on demand, the idea of, hey, the reason Liam Cohen was going like this is because if you don't hit in certain situations, not all situations, because sometimes you got to throw the ball up and let your receiver make a play, but in certain coverages, if you don't hit your receiver right on the eye, you are putting him in harm's way. Is that developing and furthering the rapport between quarterback and wide receiver? All right, let's see. Who else we got? Keys to victory. Duval T87, you are always asking. Keys to victory. I run the ball, stop the run. My friend John Shipley of Jaguar Report joked, if Trevor Lawrence throws the ball 12 times in this game, the Jaguars are probably going to win the game. I think the same could have been said for this past Sunday, although I applaud Liam Cohen for showing the fact that against certain defenses, the Jaguars can throw the ball around the yard and also put themselves in a position to win. But stop the run the ball. You guys heard me say it. I think the Jaguars can prove they are the more physical team in the AFC South. Brian, here's an actual question. How concerned are we about Al-Shaair in that situation? These players remember. I will tell you this, Liam Cohen and the Jaguars players remember. They're not going to talk about it, though. They want to prove that they are I don't want to say the better man or, the taking the high road. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about, hey, if we win the game, that's going to be enough of a salt in the wound of Al-Shaair that we don't really care. I do think the fact that Al-Shaair never reached out to Trevor is weird. And some of the comments he made earlier this week where he was just like, yeah, I'm just going to hit him in the mouth. Like, dog, read the room. But reading the room is the most underrated quality you can have as a human being in 2025. Last one in last call. Hamby's burner. Who is in for Ezra if he doesn't go? I would assume Chuma Edoga. Wyatt Milam returned to practice on Friday, Hamby's burner. I'm fascinated to see, number one, if he's even active on Sunday. But number two, I don't think they would ask the third-round rookie to immediately step in for Cleveland, who suffered an ankle injury at the end of Sunday's loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on Club 904. For those of you who subscribe, or maybe you don't subscribe, to the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook, this way, that way, that one, nope, that way, left for your right is hard. Point being, that is where you can find all of my notebook reports from Jaguars practice, things I'm hearing around the league. We have a Discord chat that's going 24/7. If you have questions for me, $5 a month to be a standard scooper, and a special offer right now, 7 free day trial. You also will get access to tonight's first ever live video Q&A, whether you are a paid subscriber or you are a part of that free 7-day trial. Moving forward, the $10 subscription per month, that is for the friends of the pod. That is who will have an opportunity to be a part of those live Q&A chats. Bring your questions. Let's have some fun. That's live tonight at 6 p.m. And make sure you subscribe to the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook so you can get in on that conversation and a whole lot more throughout the course of the 2025 season. That does it for today's Club 904 Fleet and Footy. See, I got it right that time, Stuart. Is coming up next here on the Action Sports Jacks channel. We will catch you on Sunday for this Club 904